Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Threezero DLX scale Transformers figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at our first Maximal from Transformers Rise of the Beasts. It's none other than Optimus Primal. Now, I got mine as a review sample direct from Threezero. Even though they sent me this to make a video on it, all opinions, as always, are 100% my own. I have not been asked to only say good things. I have popped a link to Threezero's website, if you're after this guy, in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Threezero DLX scale Transformers figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, I love how unapologetically busy this is. It knows what it's doing. There's logos and artwork absolutely everywhere. But it owns it. And I'm so here for it. This gives me like movie 1/movie 2 leader class figure box art vibes. And if that's what they were going for, they freaking nailed it. Up front, we've got an image of the figure itself. And like I already said, logos everywhere. This is a big box, man. I'm getting really excited to get Primal out here. On the side of it, more logos, as well as an image of Optimus Primal in the background with this almost tech spec / wireframe overlay on top of it. Is that what I think it is? The claw marks in the background behind Optimus Primal? Is that supposed to be a callback to the 90s Beast Wars style packaging Threezero? If it is, well done. It's subtle, but I love to see it. Down below, around the back of the box, we've got warnings and legal information, figure photography showcasing various poses, and some of Optimus Primal's accessories. Underneath this top cover, it's held in place with Velcro. We've got an open window showcasing Optimus Primal inside, as well as just one more shot of the figure himself. Oh, he is a big boy. I know I've already seen him in person, so I shouldn't be surprised by this. Yet, I am. I guess I just forgot how big he is. And how heavy he is, because this figure weighs an absolute ton. First in-hand impressions, very heavy, love the paint, digging the size. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box, and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. It's the same base as usual. They've been using this base mold since the very first figure was released in the DLX line. Good on them for keeping the bases consistent across all of the releases. It's quite a large footprint base, but at the very least it's low profile, so it's not going to add a ton of height to Primal in the collection. There's a lot to look at up on top with the sculpted in circuitry and mechanical bits and pieces, the vent work and whatnot. And they've cast it in navy blue plastic this time, rather than the usual black, so that is something different for Primal's base. I would have liked green logos on the front. I think that would have looked really cool, and it would have matched Optimus Primal's bright green eyes. The flight pole is articulated. You can unlock it, then move it up and down, then lock it back in place so it doesn't move when Primal is sitting on it. The top part is telescopic. You can also push that right back down. And you can adjust the piece that plugs into his Primal booty. You'll see where this piece connects up to him a little bit later. I haven't decided as of yet which mouth plate I'm going with definitively, permanently on the figure. So we'll be trying out all three of them when we bring Primal out here. Let's be honest, Optimus Primal in Rise of the Beasts doesn't look anything like the original Optimus Primal in Beast Wars. But the swords do look like the originals. The shape of them with the curved blade and how they swoop up in the middle, these look about right to me. It's the only thing that screams 90s Beast Wars. They're painted in shiny metallic silver, there's this wash over the top and some speckling. Then the blades are done in translucent orange plastic, and if you light them correctly, they do almost look like they're glowing. With the OG Beast Wars Optimus Primal, you'd have him hold on to both of his swords in his hand to make it look like he had a double-bladed staff weapon. Threezero include this circular connector piece so you can connect up both swords and achieve that same look. These clips will come into play later. You can use them to holster the swords on Primal's back. Hands down, the best option in my opinion for the swords, a real metal chain that just connects up to the bottom of them. They've added some orange paint on some of the links to make it look like it's old and nasty and rusty. Fingers crossed, one day we get some articulated finger hands for our DLX scale figures, because we know they can do it. They give us articulated finger hands with their premium scale releases. There's even some little rivets on each of the fingers, and those could have been pins going straight through them to allow for articulation. We get a full array of these rubbery plastic ones, ranging from open palm hands to gripping hands, and they are soft, so you can pry the fingers open and slot the swords in there. Two splayed out finger hands, meant for action poses perhaps. They're all painted very nicely, by the way, with this silver scratching on the surface. And giving each finger multiple armor plates on it almost reminds me of the armored up knight look for Optimus Prime. Oh, and lastly, two closed fists already installed on him out of the box. What we're going to do now is get Optimus Primal himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. This figure has some serious presence. For Primal, it's all about the bulk and the size and nailing those proportions. I'm pleased to report that, yeah, they did exactly that. This guy looks like the CGI model just rotating around in front of us. That's how accurate he comes across to me personally. I didn't know how it was all going to go, translating Beast Wars looks to live action in Rise of the Beasts. While this is probably not the route I would have gone, but now that I've seen him in live action, it's almost become my favorite look for Primal. Sacrilegious, I know, but seriously, this guy looks so freaking dope. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Optimus Primal's head sculpt. With all of my previous Optimus figures from Threezero, I've replaced the head sculpts with custom ones from Dino Model Shop. For this guy, it ain't necessary, because the sculpt work is already so immaculate, and the paint is crisp, we've got battle damage and speckling all over the place, the metallics are quite shiny, plus I dig the light up effect with the bright green eyes. They've used massive button cell batteries, so even though yes, they still are button cells, I think they're going to last for a while. As of yet, I've not had to change any of the button cell batteries in my stock Threezero Transformers head sculpts. But the best part about the way they've done the light up is, see this crest? That's actually the button, so you don't have to take the top of the head sculpt off, flick a switch, reassemble it. All you have to do is walk up to this guy, push the crest, and then his eyes will turn on. Not bad. The mouth does remind me of old school 90s Beast Wars Optimus Primal. Perhaps that's what they were going for. But correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't actually ever look like this in the movie. We didn't get to see him for very long in robot mode, granted, and it's been a while since I watched it. But I think when we saw him without the mouth plate on, he looked a lot more like this. It's almost the perfect fusion between his robot mode and his beast mode. You can see the ape features like the nose and his mouth, but there's still a lot of robotic detail to look at. We've got all of the sculpt work on the cheeks and also on the upper lip, not to mention the teeny tiny little sculpted details on his nose as well. Am I ever going to rock this mouth plate? Maybe every now and then, but for the most part, I'm going with the faceplate option. How could I not? He looks like an absolute freaking badass with this faceplate on. Underneath the head sculpt on the neck piece, you don't really get to see it, but there's a lot of sculpted detail under there, and we've got more sculpted pistons and little mechanical bits and pieces on the inside underneath these chest armor plates. It's all painted in this somewhat shiny satin finish gunmetal. Then there's an oil stain wash over the top that sinks into the crevices and helps that sculpt work pop. Oh man, I'm in trouble. I've got no idea how to describe any of this. But I don't really have to. You can see all of this sculpted stuff for yourself anyway. We've got the spinal column detail down the back, and even more of it is tucked up underneath this upper torso part. When you move it forward, it reveals itself. Some pistons down below for his quite narrow waist, and what looks like some brake discs on his back. Is anyone else seeing that? Let me know down in the comments below if they look like brake discs to you. These smooth armor plates are on a series of ball joints, and in typical Threezero fashion, there's even more sculpt work underneath them. You can move these parts out of the way to reveal some springs under there. In terms of paint, these dark bluish grey panels have some silver chipping on them and also some reddish rust work just on the edges. There's more of that on the internal spinal column section as well. But there's like a dusty, dirty speckling effect that's subtle on camera. In person, trust me, it's a lot more obvious. I'm not sure if you can see it, just above that Maximal logo in the sculpt work for this front armor plate. That's where you can see that sandy colored paint. It's used as an accent color to mattify these armor pieces and to add some more visual interest, because for the most part, he is just silver, gunmetal, and bluish grey. So if the weathering wasn't present and we didn't have the scratching and the rust work and the dirt and grime, I reckon this guy would have looked a little bit boring. He's not boring, though. I just want to make that very clear. They've nailed it with the look and feel of this guy in hand. The proportions are spot on. He's got these big round shoulders, this massive barrel chest. Then he narrows down at the waist, that typical like superhero style physique. And he bulks out again for the legs, and he gets a lot skinnier for the ankles. These shoulder pads are free floating, and there's more sculpt work on the die-cast shoulder joints underneath them, but the fur I don't think should have been sculpted. That's my only complaint on the entire piece. I would have liked to have seen some faux fur glued to the underside of these shoulder pads. The sculpted fur is okay, but it's just not quite as realistic as everything else is. Then again, sculpted fur means that you don't have to do any maintenance. It's always going to look perfect right out of the box. It's just that added 5% of extra realism that would have set this guy over the top for me. It would have made him even more perfect than he already is. Is it a deal breaker because he doesn't have the faux fur? Absolutely not. In fact, you might even prefer the way they've done this. I like how on some of the armor plates we've got straight up cracks and gashes through them, so if you light this guy correctly, you can get a little sneak preview of the added sculpted detail on the underside of these armor plates. The way they've done the organic sections, I guess you could call them, with the skin-like texture, it's a very deep sculpt, so it's just drunk up all the paint that they've applied on the surface. It's sunk into that sculpted detail, and these pieces now look properly aged and weathered and battle damaged. You can install his blades on the inside of his forearms if you want to. I personally don't like this option. I prefer to have him holding them as a staff, but it's just there every now and then if you want to mix it up and pop the blades on the inside of his forearms instead of having him holding them. Go for it. I think the balance between mechanical robot bits, the pistons and all of the other transformery goodness, and the organic parts like the fur and the skin panels is just right. So kudos to the design team over at Hasbro and Paramount for giving us something that looks as cool as this guy does. They've hidden the port for the flight stand underneath this back fur butt panel, which is articulated on multiple different hinges. Just look at all this, even on the inside of the leg. When we get to articulation, you'll soon find out that that ain't even it. There's more stuff squirreled away in places that you really wouldn't expect to see it. Coming down to the feet, these are probably a callback to the Bayverse Optimus Prime design, right? With the two toes at the front, that's what I'm seeing. They're also the dirtiest pieces on the entire figure. They've gone extremely heavy with the brown dirt speckling over the top to make it look like he has been stomping around on the battlefield, kicking ass, and destroying countless Scorponok's. Before we move on, these, whether they're brake discs or not, the jury is still out on that. They've got a party piece, a little hidden feature. You can remove these front cap covers, then you can install some sword holders and holster both of his blades on his back. This might look pretty sweet, and yeah, I love weapon storage, and I am probably going to display him like this every now and then. Getting to this point, it was not easy. Trying to remove these cap cover pieces without anywhere for me to actually wedge my fingernail underneath, yeah, I struggled with this for at least 15 minutes before I gave up, grabbed an X-Acto knife, I was very careful, I wedged it underneath, and I was able to remove both of these pieces. They are keyed, by the way, so when you go and install these, the little holders for the swords, make sure the flat parts are lined up with the flat parts of the peg ports on the back of Optimus Primal. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Threezero's Rise of the Beasts Optimus Primal, and on the right, Takara's Masterpiece Optimus Primal from Beast Wars. I'd like to be able to say I can see where the design inspiration came from, but I can't. They look completely different from one another. They didn't even keep like the flared shoulder pads or any of the red or the blue or the chest design, nothing. The only thing that looks similar to me is that he's got these little ear horns, but he's got less than the original Beast Wars version had, so even that they changed. Optimus standing next to Optimus. This is Prime from Threezero, also from Rise of the Beasts. He's pretty much the same height as Primal, but he's nowhere near as bulky. You can see how big Primal is now standing next to Optimus Prime. Just try and ignore the custom head sculpt on him. That is not the one he came with. Now, it's not like I'm some kind of scale expert. I've not even looked at a scale chart. I don't know if there's one that exists for Rise of the Beasts. But Bumblebee is shorter than Primal. This scaling looks about right to me. Going over articulation, if you've never seen or experienced a Threezero DLX scale Transformers figure for yourself, buckle in, because shit's about to get wild. They've packed so much engineering into this piece. This is their most well-engineered Transformers figure to date. And that's saying something, because their previous releases were already fantastic. Starting off with Optimus Primal's head sculpt. It's on multiple ball joints, one underneath the head and another at the base of the neck, looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. However, if that's not quite enough range for you, you can grab this neck collar armor piece, move it out of the way on multiple hinges, and now we've just increased range of motion in pretty much every direction. That's only the beginning. It's about to get even crazier from here. The shoulder pads are articulated, the arms go up to there, going forward and back. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. But that's not all. This entire chest piece, same thing for the other side, can move forward, so when you combine that with the butterfly joint, you can get his arms all the way around the front for maybe a chest-pounding Optimus Primal pose. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow, and you can just see all of those little pieces moving out of the way effortlessly on little tracks and pistons. Getting this much bend out of an arm that's as large as this is, a massive bicep and a huge forearm, that's crazy to me. For the wrist peg, it's a ball joint. You can move the hand in almost every direction. These armor plates are also articulated, the outer ones and the inner ones. As we articulate him forward and back, keep an eye on this lower ab section, because the way it tucks in and up and out of the way, that's very clever. They've also added some extra spinal column detail around the back, so when you crunch him forward, it doesn't look all kinds of gappy back there. There's swivel and pivot side to side as well. His legs drop down at the thighs and also at the hips, going forward the full way, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Oh, I think that's a real working piston. And of course, we've got a double bend at the knee. That is a real working piston. And there's another tucked under the knee pad around the front. For the feet, the ankles have a series of swivels and hinges in them, so forward and back, swivel, ankle tilt, and also toe articulation, and that is another working piston. Wrapping up on Threezero's DLX scale Optimus Primal, based off his appearance in Transformers Rise of the Beasts. This was a design I wasn't super sure about when I saw the trailers leading up to the release of the film, but when I saw the movie, everything changed. Now I adore this look for Optimus Primal. It's different, but it's primal. It looks beastly. He's big, he's bulky, he's got the huge shoulders and the monkey-style chest. It's absolutely enormous. He's dirty, he's filthy, he's grungy, he's textured. There is so much to look at all over this entire piece. I wasn't sure, I said this earlier, how the translation was going to work from 90s CGI to live action. They ditched most of the iconic stuff for Primal, but they kept a couple of key things like the swords and the exposed mouth in that one scene and the ear wings. For a lot of people, that's not going to be enough for it to scream Primal. For me, it's just the right amount, and they've made just the right changes for this look to be iconic in its own right. I think that's what Stephen Caple Jr. was trying to do. He didn't want to just copy what came before. He wanted to make something that's reminiscent of Beast Wars Optimus Primal, but also had its own identity. Was he successful? I think so, but it's all down to personal preference. If you don't like the way this chunky monkey looks, I had to squeeze that in somewhere in the review. I'm so sorry. You can just skip him. But there was no chance in hell that I was going to do that. I'm already well and truly into the Rise of the Beast line, and whatever the heck else they decide to release, I'm in on those figures as well. You know what would be interesting? They've been doing these sort of G1 and Shattered Glass and IDW or whatever recolors of their DLX figures. I'd love to see a Beast Wars recolor of this Optimus Primal, because you could flare the shoulder pads out, and if the colors were right, yeah, he would be coming home just because of that Beast Wars nostalgia factor. Now, at the end of this, the accuracy here is crazy good, and the engineering just blew my mind. This is undeniably, in my opinion, their best DLX scale figure to date. Now, I got mine as a review sample direct from Threezero. I've popped a link to their site in the description below, just in case you'd like to pick up your very own copy of Optimus Primal. As always, even with this guy being a sample, I've not been asked to only say good things. All opinions have been 100% my own. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.